Most people think food security means filling a pantry with cans and bags of rice, stacking them until there's no room left, and hoping it all lasts when things get tight. That's not food security. That's just postponing the problem. Real food security isn't about what you store, it's about what you can grow, and most people never realize they're capable of producing enough food to actually feed themselves year after year without depending on a grocery store or a supply chain that can break at any moment. The difference between someone who panics when prices go up and someone who stays calm is not how much they've stockpiled. It's whether they've built a system that keeps producing no matter what happens outside their door. You don't need acres of land to do this. You don't need to quit your job and become a farmer. You need to understand that food security starts the moment you put a seed in the ground and take responsibility for at least part of what you eat. It's not about going off-grid or pretending the modern world doesn't exist. It's about reducing your dependence on a system that you don't control and can't predict. When you grow your own food, you stop being a passenger. You become someone who can feed your family even when the stores are empty or the prices are too high to justify. That shift in mindset is more valuable than any amount of food you could ever stockpile. The first thing you need to understand is that food security is not built in a single season. It's built over time, layer by layer, plant by plant, until you have a system that works without you having to think about it every single day. Most people fail because they try to do everything at once. They plant 20 different crops, get overwhelmed, and quit by July. That's not how this works. You start with 3 or 4 crops that are easy to grow, hard to kill, and actually worth eating. Potatoes, beans, squash, and greens. These are not exciting, but they are reliable. They grow in most climates, they produce a lot of food per square foot, and they store well or keep producing for months. You don't need to grow everything. You need to grow the things that make the biggest difference. Potatoes are the foundation. 100 pounds of seed potatoes planted in early spring will give you anywhere from 500 to 800 pounds of food by fall if you do it right. That's real food. That's calories. That's something your family can eat 3 times a week for 6 months and barely make a dent in what you harvested. You don't need fancy equipment to grow potatoes. You need soil, sun, water, and patience. You can grow them in the ground, in raised beds, in containers, even in bags if that's all you have. The key is planting enough of them. Most people plant a few and then wonder why they didn't get much. You need volume. You need rows. You need to treat it like food production, not a hobby. Beans are next, and this is where most people make their first big mistake. They plant green beans, harvest them for 2 weeks, and then the season is over. That's fine if you just want a side dish, but it's not food security. You want dry beans. You want the kind you plant in June, let grow all summer, and then harvest in September when the pods are brown and rattling. Those beans will last for years if you store them right, and they give you protein, calories, and something you can cook 100 different ways. In my experience, most people underestimate how much food you can get from beans because they've never grown them to full maturity. A single 20-foot row of dry beans can give you 10 to 15 pounds of finished product, and that's enough to feed a family for weeks. Squash is your backup plan. Winter squash, specifically. Butternut, acorn, Hubbard, anything that has a hard skin and stores through the winter. You plant them once, in late spring, and then you ignore them until fall. They grow like weeds, they take over whatever space you give them, and each plant will produce anywhere from 5 to 20 squash depending on the variety. 1 squash can feed a family for 2 meals. 20 squash is 40 meals. You do the math. The reason squash matters is because it fills the gap between when your fresh food runs out and when your next harvest comes in. It sits in your basement or your closet for 4 to 6 months without refrigeration, and it's there when you need it. Greens are your constant. Lettuce, kale, chard, spinach, whatever grows well in your area. These are not high-calorie crops, but they are high nutrition, and they grow fast. You can plant greens every 2 weeks, from March to October, and never run out. Most people don't think of greens as food security because they don't store well, but that's the wrong way to look at it. Greens are what keep you healthy while you're eating all those potatoes and beans. They are what make the rest of your food actually sustainable. You can grow them in a small space, you can grow them in partial shade, and you can harvest them as many times as you want without killing the plant. That makes them one of the most valuable crops you can grow. Once you have those 4 crops dialed in, You start thinking about fruit. Not because fruit is necessary for survival, but because it makes the whole system more enjoyable. And if you're going to do this for the rest of your life, you need to enjoy it. Fruit trees take years to produce, but once they do, they produce for decades. A single apple tree can give you 200 apples a year. A single cherry tree can give you 30 pounds of fruit. You plant them now, you forget about them for 3 years, and then you have food that requires almost no effort. The same goes for berry bushes, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries, currants. You plant them once, you mulch them once a year, and they keep producing for 10 to 20 years. That's the kind of food security that compounds. That's the kind of investment that pays you back every single year without asking for much in return. But none of this works if you don't understand soil. Most people think soil is just dirt, and that's why most people fail. Soil is alive. It's full of bacteria, fungi, worms, and microorganisms that break down organic matter and turn it into food for your plants. If your soil is dead, your plants will struggle, no matter how much you water them or how much sun they get. The fastest way to build good soil is compost. You take your kitchen scraps, your leaves, your grass clippings, anything organic, and you pile it up. You let it rot. You turn it every few weeks. In 6 months, you have black gold. You spread that compost on your garden beds, and you watch everything grow twice as fast with half the effort. People spend hundreds of dollars on fertilizer every year when they could be making their own for free. It doesn't make sense. Water is the other half of the equation, and this is where most people waste time and money. You don't need a fancy irrigation system. You need mulch. You need to cover the soil around your plants with straw, leaves, wood chips, anything that holds moisture and blocks the sun. Mulch cuts your watering in half. It stops weeds from growing, and it slowly breaks down into compost, which feeds your soil. Most people water every day because their soil is dry and exposed. If you mulch, you water once or twice a week, and your plants do better because the moisture stays consistent instead of going from soaked to bone dry every 24 hours. This is not complicated, but it makes a massive difference. The biggest mistake people make is thinking they need to grow everything perfectly. They see one bug, one yellow leaf, one plant that's not thriving, and they panic. That's not how this works. You're going to lose plants. You're going to have bad years. You're going to plant something that doesn't grow, and you're going to learn from it. Food security is not about perfection. It's about consistency. It's about planting enough that even if you lose 20%, you still have more than you need. It's about spreading your risk across different crops, different seasons, different parts of your yard. If the tomatoes fail, the beans are fine. If the beans get hit by pests, the potatoes are underground and untouched. You build in redundancy, and that's what makes the system resilient. One thing I've learned over the years is that people wait too long to start. They think they need to read 5 books, watch 50 videos, and plan everything perfectly before they put a single seed in the ground. That's procrastination disguised as preparation. The best way to learn is to plant something, watch it grow, and see what happens. You will make mistakes, and those mistakes will teach you more than any book ever could. The people who succeed are not the ones who knew the most at the beginning. They're the ones who started before they felt ready and figured it out as they went. Every season you delay is a season of knowledge you lose. And knowledge in gardening is everything because it's specific to your soil, your weather, your hands. Another thing worth mentioning is that food security gives you leverage in ways most people never consider until they've experienced it. When food prices spike, you're insulated. When supply chains slow down, you're unaffected. When the economy tightens and every dollar counts, you're spending less because you're eating from your yard instead of your wallet. That financial cushion adds up faster than people realize, and it's not just about saving money, it's about having options. You can choose higher quality food at the store because you're not buying everything there. You can afford to be selective. You can wait out bad prices because you're not desperate. That kind of freedom is quiet, but it changes how you move through the world. Food security is not something you achieve and then forget about. It's something you build, maintain, and improve every single year. You start small. You focus on the crops that matter. and you expand as you get more confident. In 5 years, you'll look back and realize you're growing half the food your family eats, and it didn't feel like work because you did it gradually. That's the whole point. This is not a project, it's a lifestyle. It's a quiet form of independence that most people never experience because they assume it's harder than it actually is. It's not hard, it's just consistent. And if you can be consistent, you can feed yourself for the rest of your life without ever worrying about what's happening at the grocery store.